Hello and welcome back to the Jump Show. Cheltenham review this time, not a preview. We're going to be looking back at what was an incredible 4 days of racing and also have a look at how our anti-post bets got on as well. I'm, as always, joined by Dan Overall. How are you doing, Dan?
Yeah, very well, mate. Thank you. Although I've been wandering around the last few days, like I've lost a limb. I don't know what to do with myself. Like nights that were normally spent just browsing markets and hopeless punts, I don't know what to do anymore. So this evening, recording with you guys is finally the first thing of normalcy that's actually happened in the last week. So good to be back.
Class fives around market rates and aren't really cutting it for you then, no?
Not anymore, mate. No, I'll have to get used to it come summer. But hey, for now, it's a struggle.
And Jake, how are you doing, mate? Have your feet recovered and has your head recovered as well?
Yeah, an incredible week. Lovely to spend it with guys like you, and feet just about recovered by now.
So we're going to kick things off with how our anti-post results got on. Obviously, as you'll all know, at the end of every single one of these videos, we've given you a selection or two selections. I'm just going to see how they all got on. So we'll head over to you, Dan, for just a brief summary of your selections.
Yeah, we had to wait until the last day to get the winner on the board, but the best bet I had by some distance was Vauban at 16-1, SP of 6-4, and you can imagine I was a bit nervous going into that Friday. I had a few on the line, and I hadn't had a winner yet, but he was mightily impressive with Vauban. I say he gave me a fright at the last. He came there cruising 2 lengths up at the last. He jumped so well before that, and I thought, just ping it like you did every hurdle down the back. Please do. And he decided to jump it like an absolute table. He lost the 2 lengths he had. Phil Dore and Pied Piper came upside. I was like, oh no, please not again. I can't deal with the trauma. But he's just a proper horse. To quicken again and win with any amount in hand was very, very impressive. And I say he'll be a player in the champion hurdle next year. I know some people won't like him as a 5-year-old, but he's got some engine on him. So he was a great winner to get on the board at 16-1. West Cork then came next, ran a very nice race in the county to finish 4th in place at 14-1, went off at 13-2, which I kind of thought he'd go off around that price, just given his profile, and few too good for him. State Man was much superior, but he ran a decent race, and they'll look forward to chasing with him next year. And Grangy was the other one who placed, and again, a 14-1 on here and went off 13-2. And I think she was a bit unlucky, really, because the race didn't quite pan out for her. She was ridden quite patiently, as I thought she would be, and I was quite hopeful about that because it normally suits in that race, but she just wasn't best placed when the tempo began to lift. And in Love Envoy, she had a horse who'd proven stamina over further and was up there with the pace throughout, and she just never had a chance of really reeling her in under those conditions. But she ran a cracker. And Ballygriffin Cottage was unlucky just to finish one out of the places at a big price as well. And I'd say the one hard luck story I probably had was Commodore in the Kim Muir, because I managed to pick out a Venetia Williams trained runner with Lucy Turner on board, and it wasn't Commodore. And then they come with a B string in Chambard, and that exact combination wins it at like 40-1. I couldn't believe it. So my conclusion is Commodore would have absolutely bolted up, and that's a moral winner. But it was a loss on the spreadsheet, but I'm still claiming it.
I was going to say, all of Venetia Williams' horses ran really good races throughout the whole week. And just going back to Vauban as well, which was your winner, that champion hurdle next year is going to be fierce. Obviously, we're going to have Constitution Hill, Honeysuckle will be there again. And of course, Epatante, who ran a massive race.
Let it go.
Oh, okay. For me, I've got 8 selections. Now, 2 of them didn't make the track. That was Buddy Ritchie, who got pulled out on the day, and cannot remember the other one, Monte Cristo. Cool, that was a bad one. 3 of them got brought down. How's your luck? We had Saint Sam. He was hampered by a faller at the 3rd fence. Interestingly, he was held up, and he seemed fairly settled in that position as well. He was known as a bit of a tearaway prior to that. Another one was Tell Me Something Girl, who was brought down 2 out. She was going well enough, going wide as well, and obviously we know that the 1-2 finished up against that rail. It was most probably too far out to know, but I thought she was going well enough. And Langer Dan, 12s into 7-2 favourite. He was brought down to the 2nd hurdle. He looks very well handicapped still. I believe the plan is to go to Aintree. From my 3 finishers, 2 of them did win. That was Flora and Porter at 6-1. An incredible ride by Danny Mullins. Whatever Dan says, do not listen to him. That was also expertly analysed by Ruby Walsh on ITV as well. So if you haven't checked that out, definitely do. And there was a solid winner from us in Ellie May at 7-1. A strong driving ride by Mark Walsh at the finish there. I was really happy with my bets. Another year, could have got a third horse up, but profit is profit. Jake, how about yourself? You had a massive price winner for us, didn't
you? I did, yeah. So mine was kind of converse to the Dan's in that I only had to wait until the third race for Correct Rambler to win the Ultima. And it was also in converse style where he jumped like an absolute table the whole way around and only pinged the last. But yeah, once he came up that hill, you could just see him. Derek Fox just had his, was down driving the whole way, split the eye of the needle between the horses, and he absolutely powered home, to be fair to him. One for going up and trip in the future, that's for sure. But yeah, Correct Rambler, 25-1. That is magic. Queensbrook was a little bit unlucky in the mare's hurdle. I mean, obviously, as you said, that incident happened to Tell Me Something Girl. I thought then Queensbrook was going to go and pick up the pieces. She looked like it going towards the last. It looked like she was going to win easily. Going after the last, there's about 4 of them in line. She just didn't have the toe to go on with Marie's Rock. She came second, but 9-1 into 4-1 SP. Happy days. Away from that, it was really not that much to shout about. Dino Blue 10-1 into 11-8 SP, and she just didn't get into the race, did she? Lacked the experience that the others did, but yeah, didn't run any sort of race that you'd expect such a well-backed favourite. Frontal Assault was another very disappointing one for me, into 6-1 SP, but I'll touch on that again a bit later. And then yeah, a few non-runners after that, and Manila Karuna was probably the hardest one to take as he got injured just before the festival. Surely would have gone well in the Albert Bartlett, but yeah, cannot complain at all.
Quick one just to go back to Dino Blue. Do you reckon she was do you reckon it didn't help that they went fairly slow? They slowed up in the middle of the race, and I thought she'd be more of a stayer.
Yeah, potentially. I think it's one of those races where she just wasn't used to being around so many horses. She never looked comfortable with so many mares around her. I think she's one that she'll still win races going forward, but yeah, I think it's just a race to forget for her really, and we'll see what happens with her next time, to be honest.
So just to go back to it, if you did back all of our selections, if you backed all of mine, you've got 9 points profit. Dan, if you backed all of his selections, he would have got his revenge on me. He got 9.4 points profit. And the new kid on the block, Jake, he hit 11.58 points profit, which means if you backed all of our selections to advised prices, you would have come away with 29.98 points profit. That's something I'm really proud about, boys. You should definitely pat yourselves on the back for that. And thank you to anyone who sent over your winning bet slips throughout the festival. I saw a couple notable ones. Someone won £700 off of £2, and someone else won 3.5K off a tenner. That was, do you know what? That was nuts. That made my head fry. I don't know about you boys. How did you feel about all that?
Well, I say those slips are coming through, and I think the more miraculous part of it is episode 3 will live in the annals of history as being an unbelievable display, because that was the episode where we had Correct Rambler from Jake at 25s, Vauban from me at 16s, and Flooring Porter for you, Will. I think it was 6-1 or was it at the time? Yeah, I say, and that was the one that really produced some of those big winners, these Trixies and the likes, and yeah, 10 quid stakes returning over £3,000. It's just some unbelievable display. It'll never happen again, but that is I think maybe have that as your pinned video on the channel, Willow, because that's one we can hang our hat on for all time.
I'm just kicking myself that I didn't back the Trixies myself.
I know. I didn't have a penny on it. Well, I knew, because I should have done the double with me and Jake, but I don't trust you, Willow, so I wouldn't have put that one in there.
Interestingly, I backed all of Jake's selections, but none of yours.
You lost out on some profit then, didn't you, mate?
I did lose out on point 4.
Hey, every little point counts.
Every little point counts in this game. All right, the main plan for the rest of this is we're going to talk about our performances of the week, disappointments of the week, a horse to take forward, and a very early shout for next year's festival, which you will not want to miss. Maybe even another winning Trixie. How would that feel? We'll kick things off with the performance of the week. There was a load of standout ones. Constitution Hill, Allaho, A Plus Tard, many, many more, I'm sure, as well. Jake, I'd love to know your performance of the week.
Yeah, for me, it has to be Constitution Hill in the Supreme. It was just a devastating performance, wasn't it? It was interesting that Jonbon was up there straight with Dysart Dynamo, taking him on a little bit and, keeping him honest. That was interesting. But no matter how those two played out, Constitution Hill would have absolutely bolted up. That's for sure. He handled the quicker ground absolutely no problem. And yeah, it was just frightening to see how well he came up the home straight. He's actually been given a BHA rating of 170 for winning a Grade 1 novice hurdle. It's insane.
That's an overreaction, right? That's a massive overreaction. That's not just me.
The time backs it up.
We'll find out.
Yeah, but of course the time backs it up. It was ran on concrete.
Yeah, but in comparison to races on the card, it was 5.7 seconds quicker than the champion hurdle. I know the races run at a different tempo, but it almost, if you read some measures, actually broke the track record.
Yeah.
It may be an overreaction, but he's not going to run in a handicap ever anyway. So what does it matter, really? Let's be real.
But Michael Buckley still seems fairly keen on going to Punchestown to take on Honeysuckle. He said that they're going to see how Constitution Hill is around Aintree type time to see if they may go for the top novices hurdle, just the Grade 1 novice hurdle there. If not, they may go to Punchestown and take on Honeysuckle, and what a sight that would be. I think that they're also saying that they're going to stay over hurdles next season, which is the right thing to do. Go for that champion hurdle. Such an exciting horse.
It is really good to see some life in this champion hurdle because although he was going to most probably be beaten well out of sight, Sir Gerhard is another horse to add to that list as well, who's most probably going to stay over hurdling. I'd be surprised if they didn't give Constitution Hill another run though. He's only had 3 runs this season, right? And I can't imagine that. I know it's an impressive performance, but I mean, you can't imagine winning by 22 lengths. It's going to take too much out of him. Dan, Constitution Hill, was he your idea of the performance of the week as well, or have you gone for something else?
He was, yeah. I mean, we don't convene our notes beforehand, so we hop on and kind of figure things out as we go. Sorry to pull the curtain away, but there's not a concrete plan we have coming to these videos. But I think he has to be the performance of the week. I know it was the first race, but that was phenomenal. There's no other way to put it. And yes, you can have a couple of caveats that Dysart Dynamo fell. He and Jonbon took each other on early on to basically set the race up for him. But it still takes a horse of immense quality to do what he did. As you say, BHA mark 170. I think he's the highest rated novice hurdler in time form history. I think 177p. It's just off the scales. I think Honeysuckle's 165 in time form ratings for comparison. So that's the kind of accolades he's being labelled with here. And it was just truly spectacular. 5.7 seconds quicker than champion hurdle, carrying £4 more than Honeysuckle was. Just utterly breathtaking, really special. As an alternative, I'd say I think Vauban was very good the more I've watched it. To quicken up as he did again after making a mess of the last, to pull away from 2 very good horses in Fildor and Pied Piper, that's very smart. That horse is going to be a real dual purpose performer for the next few years. And maybe as a bit of a caveat as well, the ride of the week, I think, has to go to Derek Fox on Corach Rambler. That is some achievement. The way he got him through there, he knew he had a quirky, awkward type on his hands. He did everything under his power to get him in the right direction. And when the chance came to pass horses and go through the gap, he took it and he powered away. That was a sight to behold for sure. For as much as I was trying to see if Fantastic actually sneaked forth, I've watched the race back since to admire it, and it was some ride by Derek Fox.
And you just had me jumping around in the background while you're
doing yeah, absolutely, yeah. I became far too deep in the Fantastic House bandwagon. I was too deep in that for my own good. And look, he ran a fine race, away from it. But he ran fine, but. Yeah, I'd say the Corach was much the best on the day. And consolation goes to Jericho Rock as well. That horse has been the unluckiest horse in training this season. Keeps bumping into horses in big handicaps, and I think he's gone up about £20 for it, up to about 140. And he was £5 out of the handicap as well. And I mentioned him for the Kim Muir, which he would have hacked up in if he ran there instead. But hey, we can't always get it right.
Jake, Constitution Hill or Honeysuckle at Punchestown, who would you back? Dan, I'm going to ask you the same question so you can think about this at the same time. Go on.
At the minute, getting the £7, I have to say Honeysuckle. But I kind of hope that Constitution Hill does do it because I just want to see a monster in the champion hurdle next year.
Fair enough.
Mm.
And you, Dan?
Yeah, well, I think Honeysuckle's even money, isn't she? About 8 to 11. Constitution Hill, I think that was the market. Yeah, at that price, I'd go Honeysuckle. I think a strongly run race. I'd love to have a couple of pace setters in there just to really tee it up for both of them, because they ran very different races at Cheltenham here, like very different conditions. But I say a mare of her quality getting £7 at this stage in their careers, I'd side with Honeysuckle at the prices.
Yeah, as much as it pains me to say it, I also would. That was 15 from 15, right? No way in how should a horse's 15 from 15 not be going off favourite for a race. So if Constitution Hill was to go off favourite, I'd most probably back her. Mine isn't a bold shout. It's not Constitution Hill as high up as he would be on my list. I actually said it to my mate and he went, "Oh, look at you, you're trying to be so edgy, just pick Constitution Hill." And I'm like, well, Galopin Des Champs was, well, Kanye West moment here, but Galopin Des Champs was running a massive race before he fell at the last. He ballooned the first few fences, but his jumping down the back straight was electric, bar one that he reached for, but he landed absolutely fine. I've watched the race back a few times, and every time I watch it, I'm like, oh, he's landed, but he didn't. Yeah. He just buckled, and it baffles me. It was a novice error. He's still young. I think he's a proper weapon. I liked the idea of them dropping it back to 2 miles, which Willie did touch on post race. So yeah, Galopin Des Champs, most probably Constitution Hill on par with as well. A little bit of love for Allaho, who won on completely different conditions to last year, but was still just as impressive. Absolutely incredible performance. So yeah, some really good races to savour for racing fans. We'll move on to disappointment of the week. For me, on a personal note, was Langer Dan not getting a run. That was a huge disappointment. Obviously, we had Shishkin. There's another who was bitterly disappointing for one reason or another. What was it? Was it a hard run at Ascot? Was it the ground? We don't know. But the one that really shocked me was Mighty Potter in the Supreme. He was a horse that we could sort of set our clock by. He was a Grade 1 winner who's ran the same race every single time, but his race ended before the race. The run ended before the race even unfolded. I tried to look for as an excuse. There was no post-race abnormalities. Maybe the ground was on the quick side, but that was really disappointing from him. Maybe a few of Gordon Elliott's did disappoint on the week as well. So hopefully there's nothing wrong with him though. But yeah, that was my disappointment. I'll go to you, Dan.
I think you touched on it. Mine is just the Champion Chase as a whole. I think we've come into this race a few times in recent years thinking this is the race of the week. Can't wait for this. And literally within a fence, Shishkin was beaten. Like, he didn't even get to the first.
3 odds on Fabs in a row have been beaten. Defi Desoy, Chacun Pour Soi, Shishkin.
Yeah, and it's not even in the case of like all of them where they've just been beaten, so it's a bad race. Like in the case of Defi, he didn't run his race at all. Obviously, Shaka was a meddling race last year, and Shishkin literally was never in the race. Like you knew from the moment he got to the first, he was never going. We know he hits flat spots, but he was at no stage happy. So I think, honestly, that was a write-off from the start. And then just to add insult to injury on the race, Shakan then fell. So the race just kind of fell apart into an Ergomene's hands. And I say deteriorating conditions by that stage as well really did make it a very anticlimactic affair. And in the end, he beat a solid 150 horse fairly comfortably. And there's no doubt Energumene is a top-class horse, but like so much shine was taken off of that performance. And Wednesday as a whole was a very strange day, wasn't it? You had some real high points in there. Obviously, a lot of people debate the Tiger Roll Delta Works send off, but I thought that was a proper way to go out on your shield against a top class horse, be the horse we remember as enjoying his racing. I love that. And then you had the Coral Cup, which was a mess, the Champion Chase, which completely fell apart, the Grand Annual, which turned out to be dreadful. It was just and then you had the whole weird stuff with the Champion Bumper. So it was a really strange day, but I say I'm going to struggle to get excited for a Champion Chase ever again until we're like 2 out on the day and like all the protagonists are still in the race. I think I'm becoming very cynical in my relatively young age.
Watching too much racing. Jake, who was your disappointment of the week?
Yeah, mine comes on a personal level, and as I've mentioned earlier, is Frontal Assault. He was my absolute nap the whole festival, really, and he just never got into a rhythm at all. I watched it back a couple of times. He just never was consistent with his jumping. You know, he jumped some steeply, jumped some too big. He corkscrewed over a couple of them, never traveled comfortably. There was one point where it looked like he might be getting back into the race, and then he belts a fence and he's basically out with the washing. Ends up getting pulled up. It was just such a weird week for Gordon's horses. Like, you've got to consider that he's got very, very, very high standards when it comes to the Cheltenham Festival. And 2 winners is not to be sniffed at. You know, for most trainers, 2 winners, they'd be absolutely over the moon. But 2 winners for Gordon Elliott marks a disappointing week, unfortunately, for him. So yeah, it was a strange one, but look, I'm sure he'll be back next year, and I'm sure I'll be backing all of his handicap plots once again.
The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, I believe. Front of Solskjaer, exactly. That's a good one, because he was really weak in the market on the day, wasn't he? He was like 7-2 the week before, and then 6-1, like 11-2 co-fab with Mr. Coffee. I think you know my love affair with that race. And this year I was like, no, I'm not going near it. It was a very strange one.
Yeah.
We'll look at horses to take moving forward. Now, these don't have to be horses that are going to be running at the festival next year. It should just be horses that are going to be running either in the later spring festivals or next year. Dan, I'll head to you.
Yeah, I'll give you a couple. Handicapper, I think Camprond ran very well in the Coral Cup despite conditions just deteriorating, and he's a real good ground, spring ground kind of horse. That was only his first run for 4 months because they kept him off with a view to the spring. He's been left unchanged at a mark 140, having finished 4th here, which I think was a very creditable effort. He's got a race in him off that kind of mark, and the 2.5 mile handicap at Aintree would seem a logical target for him. And maybe a view to the future and next season. Ilete Tomb is still a horse I retain a lot of faith in. He was extremely keen in the Triumph, like more so than he was last time in the Spring Juvenile on debut. He was novice-y there, whereas here he was a bit keen and a bit unruly. Like, he gave Danny really no chance at any stage. He was still keen about a mile into the race, but he was still there with a chance running to the last. He was on the outside being pushed along, but his chance wasn't completely gone. But in the end, his early exertions took its toll. But he's a horse of some ability, and once they can harness that properly, and if he remains a novice for next season, which it looks like he's going to, then I can see him being a factor in some of those top graded novice hurdles next season.
And Jake, what about you for horses to take forward?
Yeah, I'll give a couple as well. I'm going to start off with Grangy, just because it was honestly the best day I've ever had on a race course, and I didn't back a winner all day. It was just incredible.
Didn't wear a blazer that fit you either. Saw that tweet.
That was a good one. But yeah, as Dan mentioned earlier, the race wasn't really run to suit. There wasn't a strong enough pace. The plan was always for Paul to come with 1 run. That's all Willie basically told us before the races. 1 run. But yeah. She came with that 1 run, and she was still, it wasn't a bother on her. She came back into the paddock, and she was so calm. Like we had 20 or 30 people around her, and she didn't care at all. She was absolutely fine. Paul said that she didn't have a hard race, which is obviously understandable with the way she was ridden. And yeah, the plan is hopefully the 2.5 mile grade 1 at Fairyhouse next. Not confirmed, obviously, but we will see, and fingers crossed. Away from there, I thought Oscar Elite ran really well in the Ultima. He was £5 out the handicap. He's gone up £6, so technically he's only going to have to run off a £1 higher mark at Aintree. So there's basically the exact same race at Aintree. I'm sure he'll go off pretty shortish, but I think he'll go close there, unless Shan Blue turns up, where he's been left on 148, and there's excuses for him in the Ryanair. So that would be an interesting little matchup at Aintree. But the main one that I had on my list, which is a little bit ruined by the Irish handicapper, but Gaillard de la Manille ran an absolute cracker in the RSA at the Brown Advisory, stayed on for 3rd. Now, Willie's got this thing where he does with these horses that are not grade 1 horses, but still, of some ability, where there's a 2 mile 5 furlong novice handicap chase, grade A at Punchestown, and he's won it 5 of the last 6 runnings, and the last 3 runnings have all been top weight. So he had Kenboy off 147, Real Steel off 151, and Asterion Falange off 152. Now, unfortunately, I was hoping that he would get in somewhere in that range, be rated around 150, but he's unfortunately been given 154. So this plan might be out the window, and they might just go for the 3 mile grade 1 novice. But it was, it was good to see him take a step forward. By far his best performance over fences.
Dan made a fairly good point about him being ridden to pick up the pieces, which I thought was very fair. And also, most probably a change to soft ground might suit him. But he's a young horse, definitely one to keep on your radar going forward. I've got a couple. One is a real left field shout, and that's Maid O'Malley. She was 100-1 for the Mares' Chase, and she was running a mega race before falling about 2 out. There were horses in that race rated about 150. Now she's rated 121. She's gone up £6 for that, but I think she could run to about 135. And in same-sex company, she can go back and win off 127 for sure. She was up with them about two fences out. So yeah, should be one to take forward in Mares' Company. And one more obvious one, which I think people might actually turn their noses up because he was beaten at a short price, but that's Gaelic Warrior. That was his first run after months off the track at a huge festival on ground that was most probably quicker than he wants. He jumped right in the closing stages, most probably a bit constant throughout the race, but they thought it was a Supreme horse. I believe he retains his novice status next year and he can be a player. He's about 20-1 in the Supreme and I think 25s for the Ballymore. If he was to go that route, I'd be definitely interested in Gaelic Warrior. We'll move on to horses for next year's festival. And this obviously can go from any race. And I'll head to you, Jake.
Yeah, so my horse actually comes, he ran this season in the bumper. And that's James's Gate, who came third. Now, he ran a stormer in the race, came from pretty far back, ran really, stayed on really strong. He's definitely a horse who's going to appreciate going up and trip next season. But there's a really interesting quote from Willie Muntz before he even ran. This was from a stable tour before Cheltenham, where he said he was very impressive when winning at Punchestown and being owned by Sean and Bernardine Mulryan. They're aiming him at the Ballymore next season. He needs to go to Cheltenham to get experience for that. But apart from that, he's good enough to take his place anyhow. So basically, they've taken him there for some experience to see how he runs. They've thought obviously he'll run well, but we've already got his target. He's going to go for the Ballymore next season. And unfortunately, the price has gone a little bit over the last couple of days as people have cottoned on to that, but you can still get 14-1, which is fair. And I just think that stepping up and trip is really going to suit him. He's a nice, sizable horse. He's also related to Fagan, who was second in the Albert Bartlett when he was a younger horse. And yeah, I think he looks much better than What Do You Want, who managed to actually finish third in the Ballymore this year. So yeah, I think James's Gate has got a really good chance in the Ballymore next year. Obviously, we've got plenty of water to go into the bridge between now and then. But yeah, he's on my early radar.
Yeah, Willie will end up doing a little switcheroo and sending him somewhere else. What odds did you say that was? 14-1?
Yeah.
Dan, what about yourself?
Just on that bumper as well, Seabank Bistro's in fourth. I think he'll make a nice novice as well, maybe an Albert Bartlett contender down the line. But the horse for me, and again, you'll notice there's some bias in my selection, but I tend to follow the horses I've kept faith with, and I did have to get this one priced up just out of interest, and that's Ballygriffin Cottage for the National Hunt Chase, who I thought ran a cracker to finish fourth in the Albert Bartlett under a very patient ride. He was literally last pretty much all the way round, just kept picking them off, still travelling well. Never really got to within striking distance, but stayed on nicely. I think he's a proper staying chaser in the making. I don't think he's top class. I don't think he's going to win a Brown Advisory, but I think a race like a National Hunt Chase is probably going to be tailor-made for him. He'll definitely be chasing next year. He'll also be an 8-year-old. He's won 3 points already, and he did that in 3 weeks. He's proven on good to soft, good, heavy. He's just that kind of type of horse. I think it's very uncomplicated and will take to fences like Conductor Water. And I can see an early target for him being that October Novice Chase at Cheltenham, which I think Galvin won a couple of years ago, and Does He Know won this year. So it normally attracts a decent type, but I can see him going there. And on a related note, Blazing Cow would be of note to me wherever he goes. I mean, he's 25-1 for the Stayers, 25 for the Brown Advisory. Maybe the latter's more likely. See, he missed the Cheltenham Festival due to a setback. But his defeat at Ballygriffin Cottage now looks quite decent. Gelino Bello was second on a couple of occasions to him. He's going to run in the Grade 1 at Aintree. So I think he's a kind of horse that maybe just sneak under the radar because he missed Cheltenham. But he looked a real serious horse in my opinion. I thought he was a standout staying novice hurdler until he got a bit of a setback. And he looks a serious prospect. He hasn't really shown any respect for his hurdles. So maybe he's quite a big horse. He'll take the fences better. But he's got a serious engine, and at 25-1 for the Brown Advisory, he'd also be on my radar.
I struggled to look at horses for next year's festival. Dan's already plotting horses at next year's October meeting. So that's just
the plan, mate. You've got to be ahead of the game.
That sums us both up. My horse for next year is going to be coming from the Cheltenham Gold Cup. Don't get me wrong, A Plus Tard was obviously very impressive, but just call me stupid if you want, and you most probably will. I don't think he properly stays 3 mile 2 furlongs, like a strongly run 3 mile 2 furlongs. You can argue that we don't know what sort of Gold Cup we can get run next year. But he did benefit from a slowly run Gold Cup this year, using his turn of foot to great effect. Obviously got him out of a bit of a hole as well. I don't like Galopin Des Champs, and he's currently 7-2. I think that's a horrific price about a horse who first he's never gone to the trip. Most probably actually looks like going down in trip rather than up in trip. So I'm going to take a flyer on Monkfish, providing we do see him again. He will only be a 9-year-old. He has loads of top class form, whether that be over hurdles or as a novice chaser. I think it's about 16-1 you can find. I think it's as low as 10s, but 16s with a Sky Bet. And he'll be my horse for next year's festival. Gentlemen, that's going to just about wrap it up, just in time as well, because the call's going to end. Absolutely fantastic stuff. We're going to be doing a Punchestown and an Aintree preview. And obviously, if anything comes up in the meantime as well, we'll definitely discuss it. Have you boys got anything more to say at all?
No, mate, it's been a pleasure. And I'm glad I'm happier on this call than I was on this time last year.
Yeah.
If anyone saw my disheveled look after that year when everything had fallen apart around me. But it's been a pleasure, I say, to do as well as we have done, I think is some accomplishment. In a year where it's been hard for anti-post punting as well, I think we kept it selective, and obviously we had our fair share of winners at decent prices. So it's been an honour. Same again next year.
I'm going to put a screenshot up now of your face last year. And obviously, just at that moment where you're smiling, it's going to pop up so we can actually see a full-on preview. There we go.
I think I might even be wearing the same jumper, you know. That'll be great. I did it on purpose, obviously, to make your life easier editing-wise.
You got the spring wardrobe out. Jake, have you got anything more to add at all?
No, just thanks everyone so much for all your support. It's been fantastic. Like, the live stream went down so well. The whole series has gone down brilliantly. So yeah, we'll definitely be back for next season for more.
A couple of guys came up to us on track, didn't they, as well? Said they watched your show.
Did.
So shout out to you guys. Yeah, that's always surreal.
I got pulled up at the pub, maybe because I was with ABW and Josh at the time. This guy went, "Hey, you're that guy from YouTube," and I went, "Yeah, you don't know my name."
Close. That's all that matters.
All that matters. I got the recognition. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for following us throughout this series. It's been amazing, your whole support, and we'll see you very soon with some more previews.